absolute value, the absolute value of a number x, use the symbol here for that, is the distance x is from 0. So when I say what's the absolute value of 3 is, locate 3 on the number line. This is where 3 is. You want to know how far is number 3, how many units is number 3 to 0? It's only 3 units. So that's why absolute value of 3 is equal to 3. When I say what the absolute value of negative 3 is, what I'm really asking you is to locate negative 3 on the number line and ask yourself how far negative 3 is to 0, which is, again, 3 units. That's why the result of absolute value always will be a positive number, because that corresponds to a distance of the number, that number inside that absolute value symbol to 0. The distance is always a positive number. Okay, that's how you can remember it's positive. To solve inequality of the form absolute value of x is equal to a is greater than 0, if absolute value of a is equal to a, and a is positive, then x would be equal to a, or x would be equal to minus a. So this would be a simple example. If absolute value of x is equal to 2, the two numbers that, or the distance, would be 2 units from 0. One would be to the right of 0, which is number 2, and the other one would be negative 2, to the left. So the solutions would be negative 2 and 2. Solve the absolute value. Here we have absolute value of x is equal to 5. So the solution would be x equal to either plus 5 or x would be equal to a negative 5. The solution set would be, you can use a bracket here to include the solution. If I wanted the solutions, it would be 5, negative 5. Should I use the word or and? Anyone? This is a question for everyone who are logged in today. Go ahead and put a check mark in front of your name if you know this answer. Should I use or and if I want to include both of these solutions for my answer? Or, right? Remember, or was union, right? I shouldn't say my solutions are 5 and minus 5. If I say my solutions are 5 and minus 5, then my solution is nothing. There's nothing in common between 5 and minus 5, right? Empty set. So, if you want to include both of those, you have to mathematically use the word or. Solve absolute value of 3x minus 4 is equal to 11. So absolute value, if absolute value of x is equal to any number like k, x would be either plus k or x would be equal to minus k. Now, x could be an expression. This x could be an expression like 3x minus 4. So instead of x, we have 3x minus 4 is equal to 11, or 3x minus 4 is equal to negative 11. So we just solve this individually. We find our answer, x equal to 5 or x equal to minus 7 over 3. Solve the absolute value equations. In this case, we need to isolate the absolute value first. So we need to add 2 to both sides of the equation. Here I get absolute value of w is equal to 14, and then we proceed with the same idea. W is equal to 14, or w is equal to minus 14. Solve the absolute value equation. Absolute value of p is equal to 0. Well, absolute value of p is equal to 0 means p is equal to 0, or p is equal to negative 0. Well, it means p is equal to 0, right? There's only one solution here. Solve the absolute value equation. Absolute value of x equal to negative 6. Can I get a solution for that? We just said that outcome of absolute value always will be a positive number, because absolute value of a number means how far that number x is to 0. It must be a positive number. So if somebody give you a negative number in front of this equation, then there will be no solution. I cannot find a number, plug it in this absolute value, and get a negative out of that for distance. It has to be positive. So you could have a no solution here. This would be another example. When I isolate the absolute value, I see a negative right in front of that absolute value. So that would be, again, the solution. So absolute value equations in inequality, if absolute value of A is less than A, let's take a look at this. If absolute value of X is less than A, if I just simply graph this and see what are the points they're referring to, if this is 0, and if this is A here, and if this is minus A. Remember, absolute value corresponds to a distance of the number to 0. When I say absolute value of X is less than A, means all the numbers that are less than A units away from 0. Now, what other number are less than A units from 0? This number is less than A units from 0, this number, all the number all the way to A. All these range of numbers here are less than A units away from 0. On the other side, all these numbers are also less than A units away from 0. Therefore, the solution must be all the numbers that are in between negative A and A. So if you look at it that way, you can easily retrieve this solution here. Now, once I know exactly what absolute value of X is less than A means, I can write this as all the numbers that are in between negative A and A, or I can write an interval notation. So everybody understand why you're translating this absolute value of X is less than A into this notation now? So on the right-hand side, we have inequality without any absolute value, which you can work with. On the left-hand side, I have inequality and absolute value, which I don't know what to do with them. So you need to translate this into either interval notation or a notation so you can work with. So in this example here, absolute value of 2x minus 3 is less than 5. Instead of x being between negative 5 and 5, you would say all these expressions, 2x minus 3 must be in between negative 5 and 5. So that's how you translate this inequality, which contains absolute value in it, to an inequality here that doesn't have any absolute value in it. So all it means is all the numbers less than 5 units away from 0. So then we can easily solve this by adding 3 to each side of the inequality, dividing each side of the inequality by 2, and this would be my solution. So we're going to write this in interval notation. I would write all the numbers between negative 1 and 4. Now, remember, I can check my answer easily, see if that works. If I pick a number between negative 1 and 4, let's pick a number between negative 1 and 4. 0 maybe? 0 is a number between negative 1 and 4. If I substitute 0 into this inequality, then this would make sense. That's how you can check your answer. Let's do that. If I substitute 0 for each x here, does this make sense? That's the question. 2 times 0 would be 0. 0 minus 3 would be negative 3. So absolute value of negative 3, is it less than 5? The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. 3 is less than 5. Yes, that's true. So that means 0 is one solution, so as every point between negative 1 and 4. So take a look at this example here. Solve absolute value of 3x minus 4 is less than 11. Recall absolute value of x is less than a, means all the numbers that are a units, all the numbers that are less than a from 0. So this would be the numbers that are less than a from 0. So it would be all the numbers between negative a and a. So in this case, your a is 11 and your x is this expression. So you write all the numbers that are between negative 11 and 11, and instead of x, you're going to put 3x minus 4. And then you solve it. Notice that here we have a absolute value in our inequality. Here I don't. Once I translate that. So here if I add 4 to each side of the inequality and divide each term by 3, then I can retrieve the range of the solutions. I can represent it in integral notation. Absolute value in inequality. To solve inequality of the form absolute value of x is greater than a. So if I have absolute value of x is greater than a, let's see what that means. So if this is 0 and this is a, and here you have negative a, absolute value of x is greater than a means all the numbers that are larger than a units away from 0. What are the numbers that are larger than a units away from 0? Would be all the numbers would be to the right of a. All these numbers here are larger than a units away from 0. And also all the numbers to the left of negative a. That's why if I want to translate this absolute value of x is greater than a into inequality without absolute value, I would have to include two set of solutions. One would be all the number from negative infinity to negative a, and then union that with all the numbers from a all the way to positive infinity. In other words, would be all the number that are less than negative a, or all the number that are greater than a. So I don't really have to memorize anything. As long as I understand that absolute value of x is greater than a means all the number that are larger than a units away from 0, then I can come up with this range very quickly. So in this case, I have to set up two sets here. One set would be 2x minus 3, or in this case, I would replace the x, 2x minus 3 less than minus 5, or 2x minus 3 is greater than 5. All the numbers to the right of 5 and to the left of negative 5. So we can solve this individually, and then you can use with or. Or means union. You want to include both of these two sets. That would be your solutions. Here another example, solve absolute value of 20 minus 2x is greater or equal to 20. So here we have to write 2x minus 2x is greater than 20, or 20 minus 2x is less than or equal to negative 20. So we solve both of these individually, and we find our solutions are to the right of 20 and left of 0. We can easily check our answer. If I pick a number here like 10 and substitute that here, it shouldn't make sense. However, if I pick a number like 22 here or negative 2 here and substitute that here for x, that should make sense. You can check that yourself. Absolute value equations to solve inequality of the form absolute value of x is less than a or greater than a. Here would be again another example. If I have absolute value of 6x minus 8 plus 5 less than 3. The first step is to isolate the absolute value. We're going to subtract 5 from both sides of the inequality. So we get absolute value of 3x minus 8 is less than minus 2. But wait a minute. Absolute value on the left-hand side always would be a positive number. Can positive number would be less than negative 2? Never. So when you see a negative numbers here, you just have to kind of analyze it like I did here and see if it makes sense or not. Absolute value of something cannot be less than a negative number, so the solution would be empty set or P. So there's no solutions here for this inequality. So here's a list of all the scenarios that you could get. I would suggest you pause this session at this point and take a good note here for all the different scenarios you can get. So if I have absolute value of x minus 5 is less than 0, so absolute value of something at the left-hand side is always positive number. A positive number cannot be less than 0, so the solution would be no solution here. On the other hand, if I have absolute value of x minus 5 is less than or equal to 0, then you have one solution would make this true. When x equal to 5, on the left-hand side, we do get equal to 0. If I have absolute value of x minus 5 is greater than 0, absolute, if you're substituting any real numbers x except for 5, that makes absolute value of x minus 5 positive. So any number except 5 would work here. All real numbers except 5. And in this case, absolute value of x minus 5 is greater or equal to 0. That would be all real numbers. You can pick any numbers here, would be true. Sometimes you would see a form absolute value of x is equal to absolute value of y. You will see absolute value on both sides of the equation. When that happens, you can just simply drop one of the absolute value and proceed with the same method I showed you. So in this case, I can just write this as absolute value of z plus 3 is equal to, I'm just going to drop the absolute value sign on the right-hand side. So you can actually solve this one. So what that means is, whatever you have inside this absolute value is equal to plus this, and also would be equal to minus this. Just like we had before, if I had absolute value of x is equal to a, we said x is equal to a or x equal to negative a. Once I have only one absolute value sign in front of one side, that's how you would proceed. So we do the same thing here. When I drop this absolute value sign on the right-hand side, I would get absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to either plus 2z minus 7 or minus 2z minus 7. And then you solve for z to get the solution. Here's another example where we have absolute value sign for both of these. So what I can do is I can rewrite this as absolute value of x minus 4 is equal to, on the left-hand side, I'm just going to write it x plus 8. So that means x minus 4 is either plus, equal to plus x plus 8, or x minus 4 is equal to minus x minus 8. Again, if I have absolute value of x is equal to a, either x is equal to a or x is equal to minus a. So I can solve these. However, on the left-hand side, negative 4 equal to 8, that would be those solutions here. But you only get one solution here, working this on the right-hand side.